Welcome to the Bright Commerce Podcast.
So Judd, when you have a new customer, um, and you're evaluating an e-commerce platform for a client, um, like what are the things you look at when you compare WooCommerce, versus Shopify?
That's a good one. The way I look at it is Shopify, if someone comes where they don't really have a large budget, and they want something very quick and inexpensive, Shopify usually fits the bill versus going and doing a full WooCommerce build.
I
However,
agree. Yeah. It's more like a turnkey e-com, right?
yeah, but the problem is they got to know up front that Shopify is going to be their partner because they'll get a share of their revenue. They also have to pay on top of that the credit card fee. If they ever go big and start selling a lot, there is going to be slowness that starts to happen with Shopify. And their trick is to get you to go on to their Shopify Plus, which is 2,500 or more, I think, per month, the enterprise version of Shopify.
Yeah, Judd,
So
what do you mean they get a cut of your revenue? How do you factor that
don't
in?
they get don't they get literally a portion of your revenue, like a 2% or whatever it is? Let me look it up right now. I'm pretty sure.
It's actually, from my knowledge, it's from the merchant fees, right? So, their version of the payment gate, number one is they want you to use their payment gateway. If you don't, then they tack on an additional percentage.
Well, hold on. So they have like on basic $29 per month. There's a 2.9 plus 30 cents fee,
Yeah,
right? Car
right.
rates.
So they obviously they get a cut of that because that's essentially done through like a like one of those it's
But
like one.
didn't they used to take a rev share a while
I don't think
ago?
so. No, I don't think rev share. Are you talking like rev share of gross sales? No,
Yeah, I thought they took a
no,
percentage.
no. They just kind of like pigeonhole you into using their payment processor as long as you meet all the criteria. If you're like on any of those gray markets like nicotine or credit repair, Stripe isn't gonna take.
Uh,
They're gonna shut you down. So you got to go third party, and if you go third
I
party, then
I'm pretty sure the way they worded it a long time ago,
it was rev
well,
share. Okay,
maybe a
it could
couple
have
years
been.
ago, was because they actually take a percentage of your gross sales, but it says primarily associated with payment processing fees, not
Okay,
direct commission on your sales.
right, yeah,
Um,
and that's ultimately what it is. They basically skim. They get a percentage of all that. Is
so,
what it comes down to.
and you know more about Shopify than me because this is something I think a lot of people want to kind of know is like so if 2.9 is a Stripe, processing fee and you're using
Yeah.
WooCommerce, for example, you just pay your processing fee 2.9 to Stripe. Do you think Shopify has a deal set up with Stripe at, let's say, 1.5 processing fee?
No,
Or
no, it doesn't work like that. They have like a partnership. It's through like Stripe Connect. So it's really no different than Woo Payments, right? Um, so you notice on Woo Payments, you don't get access to your dashboard on Stripe. It's
yeah, it
it,
sucks.
it's all served up through the API, which is tied to the backend of WordPress, right? The reason
Yeah.
for that is the Stripe dashboard doesn't have the capability to use Stripe Connect, and your customers that are under your account get access to the dashboard. So essentially, they get a percentage of that. I don't know what that percentage is, but they just basically get a
That's
percentage of
kind of
it.
like what was it? Payment. There's like a payment plugin that does the same type of thing. Shit, what was the name? Where they get literally, it's a free plugin
Uh,
on WordPress.org. It's called oh gosh, I gotta think about it. Uh, it's a checkout plugin. Oh gosh, I have to now tell you this because that's their thing. It's like a really nice plugin. There is no pro version, but they take a percentage from Stripe. Stripe pays them a percentage of actual the sales. So the people
Gotcha.
really,
So it's probably the same thing, right? But what's the advantage of that? Why not just get the Stripe plugin for free or use Woo Payments? I tell you what, I love what they've done with Woo Payments. It's intuitive, it's straightforward. It lives under everything is under the same dashboard.
yeah, no, I typically recommend Woo Payments unless they need unless they're unless they're more enterprise, sometimes they need to have a lot of they need to do things. So I'll give you an example where Woo Payments is sometimes doesn't fit the bills. Like when you have to pass like metadata and certain things, and need like certain reporting and stuff, Stripe has a
I
bigger
gotcha.
capacity to do
I
that.
say you can hook right to their API, right? Whereas you
Do
got
all sorts of stuff,
I say
yeah. Which I think Woo Payments is getting better and is probably adding more of that. It's just going to be they just need more cases of people needing it, particularly enterprise
I say
version. But yeah, you probably I think we have like maybe 10 clients on WooCommerce payments that we manage. But then the rest like or majority are Stripe as well as unfortunately authorized.net, which
yeah. Oh,
hey,
I,
we're
I
we're,
I know I know what you mean there.
we're
Especially
getting
from
off
a security
sorry.
standpoint. From a security standpoint, that's always my biggest gripe with all these
Yeah.
third parties, man. Stripe just has it down to a science. In
But
fact, we just yeah
as I said, going back to Shopify though,
yeah
so my understanding for the fees, like, is there any like so is there you know probably better than me, is there any hidden fees with Shopify before getting the Plus plan that you know of other than the card rates? Like, because there's the rate you pay 2.9, which
yeah.
is pretty
I think
thing.
yeah. I think there is one more hidden fee, and that is with the and I haven't touched this one in a while, so it may have changed, but for a while there on like your basic plans, they wouldn't give you live shipping rates. So you have to pay extra for that. Or if you talk to them and they said, okay, well, if you sign up for the year, we'll include it for free. But
Yeah.
that's
Also, uh, sorry. Go ahead.
no, that's it as far as like hitting fees. I mean, other than that, the biggest constraint with Shopify is just like you got to use their payment gateway. That's all there's to it.
And by default, they show the prices, which is pay yearly. It's 25% off, but if you pay monthly, it's obviously a lot more.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah. I mean that everybody kind of does that these days, though.
yeah, the one thing I want to mention that I saw with Shopify is that the 2.7, they have like a 2.7 card rate or a
Yeah.
2.5 if you're on more of the advanced plan or the grow plan. So maybe that's how their pricing tries to compete or make it look nicer than WooCommerce. Because WooCommerce, you really just have your credit card processing fee, which is always going to be around 2.9 I think unless you make over $500,000 a month, I believe there's like a threshold, let's say for
Okay.
Stripe, for example,
I
you
thought it was
have
like
to.
1 mil. Like, oh, if you do over 1 mil a year, they'll start negotiating with you. And ultimately, it's not them negotiating; it's Stripe.
That's what I mean. Like the client would negotiate with Stripe.
Yeah,
I've heard anywhere from 250,000 per month
I say.
up to 500, but like it's really I think on a case by case basis, and it's like they don't have just a number. Like if you meet this,
Yeah,
you get percentage off. So you have to like it's really up to them. But that's one benefit I think Shopify is that percentage rate. But it's if you look, it's plus 30 cents, per transaction, I assume, right? Is that how that works?
that is correct. Yeah.
Yeah. So if you think about it, they say 2.7, which is that they give you that little bit of percentage, but you're still always paying 30 cents on every sale. So they are taking a piece of your pie.
Yeah, but that's also with Stripe. If you go talk to the Stripe directly,
Yeah,
it's 30 cents per transaction.
true.
Which it's
Yeah.
funny, I always wonder how do soda machines, because now everything's tap to pay or use a credit card. How do soda machines actually make money, right? Because you're thinking from an e-commerce standpoint, gosh, it's 30 cents per transaction, regardless of how big the transaction or how small it is, right? So I'm like, how do these guys make money? They actually have, I asked the vending machine guy one day, I was like, hey, I'm like, what kind of payment processor fees do you have here? I'm like, I work in e-commerce and from my world, these are the fees. Does that apply to you guys? He's like, no, we actually get like special fees just for this type of business. I forgot what it is. I think it's like 5 cents per transaction or something like that. I don't know. I'm just making it up.
Yeah, yeah, it doesn't yeah, so they have the cash one they do, and that's probably, yeah, that makes sense because I mean, how much does a soda machine actually make is what I'm wondering.
Yeah, I don't know. I couldn't tell you. I couldn't. I have no idea. I guess it depends on the traffic, right, and conversion, competition. Just like any business, right? Where is it located? Does it have products that are viable? What is it up against? If it's not by the same company that they're going to outsell you or vice versa. But
I'm
anyway,
looking it up right
bottom
now.
line, bottom
Because
line.
I know we're talking about Shopify, but fuck it, let's talk about soda
Yeah,
machines.
no, no, it's fine. No,
That
we'll
sounds
continue.
more,
No, but
that
bottom line
sounds
is,
more cool.
yeah, no, but
So
bottom
data
line,
processing
hold on, Judge.
is
Hold on, let me move it
sorry,
along.
good.
We're not, look, I got plenty of other questions. I got some good ones coming up. So
Okay.
bottom line is, you definitely feel like Shopify is a better like low cost turnkey approach if a customer just wants like straight up e-com, right? B2C e-com.
Yeah. Yeah, typically, see, with WooCommerce, you have to build your website from scratch. You have to create a nice design. You have to build the whole site out. Usually, you need a web developer to do that.
Yeah,
With Shopify, you don't necessarily need
yeah,
that. So
yeah.
typically,
Questionable,
it's
but yeah,
more, it's an easy kind of for the people that need something quick, don't have a big budget, don't have a big startup budget,
yeah,
and they want to just test something out. It's a great way to throw that
yeah.
up.
Maybe,
Sometimes what happens is, let's say they need something very elaborate that may go on WooCommerce, but they need something right now in that 6 month period while they're building a WooCommerce site. A lot of times they'll put up a Shopify cart real quick just to be able to sell their product
I got
online.
you. So now,
So
like,
it's kind of like a step up for WooCommerce, in my opinion, a lot of ways.
cool. So now walk me through the opposite, right? Where do you feel like WooCommerce is a better fit versus Shopify?
I just wouldn't. Personally, I would never build a Shopify site because of cost. And at the end of the day, I want autonomy over everything I have for my business, every asset, right? So Shopify is own like they own the platform. So your website's never yours, never will be yours. Everything that you put into
Can't
it,
put it anywhere else. Can only host it with
you
them.
can't you can't take it away later.
Right. Yeah.
So to me, that's a non-starter.
Yeah. I mean, that's
It's
that's a
a
big
risk.
down. That's a big downside of SaaS or cloud-based
Yeah.
application period, right? Not just on the Shopify side, but just SaaS in
And,
general.
and why would I spend $2,500 a month to use someone's platform when I could build, like, honestly, if you took $2,500 a month times 12, that's a good deal of money to be able to dump into your own website, your own infrastructure, being
Yeah.
able to set up using tools like ERP systems like Fishbowl, SAP, like all those fees could go towards what you really need, and that is being able to manage the back office functions, the shipping, the inventory, because a lot of that stuff Shopify doesn't do either. So not only do you get the large fee with Shopify, let's say you have to then upgrade to an ERP system, well, you're going to be paying that fee too. Where WooCommerce is open source, you do pay for plugins, which the plugin difference is you pay a yearly license for almost the same cost of what a monthly license is for Shopify. So when I look at extensions on Shopify and plugins on WooCommerce, the cost I think for software is a lot less too. So enhancing your site's a lot easier as well. Plus there's 80,000 free plugins on so if you're starting out just like Shopify and need to throw some stuff up, you can spin up on Pressable very quickly a website that already has WooCommerce installed. There's themes that you can add on the back end yourself. There's plugins you can add yourself. So you can do things yourself just like Shopify. It's a little bit of a learning curve compared to Shopify. But then again, use ChatGPT and you're a rock star. Like
Yeah,
there's
for the
ways
most
to do
part.
it.
Yeah, for the most
Yeah,
part. But yeah, so
so
when do you like really like if a customer approaches you and when do you really say, hey, you know what? WooCommerce is for you, not Shopify. You got to go with Woo in this case. Because they're going to
uh,
give you the
uh,
requirements, right?
so I literally so we do work with some shop very like 2% of all our clients, their couple are on Shopify for various reasons. I typically would never recommend Shopify. I, I just would. I don't. It's not that I don't feel like that. To me, that is just not good advice for someone that is trying to build up a business and keep their costs like at fixed cost. I feel like Shopify, they can raise their rates at any time. just like the enterprise version of Shopify, with Shopify Plus, I believe like 4 years ago it was $1,500. Now
Yeah,
it's $2,500.
yeah, of course, yeah.
It's just
I mean,
not something
I'm gonna give you some pushback on that. There are some big advantages on the Shopify side. Uh,
well, let's hear it.
yeah, number one is scalability. We had a customer who's a celebrity customer come to us a few years ago. They wanted to launch an e-com site, and we were sort of skeptical on going with Woo. And again, we're talking like 5, 6 years ago, where Woo was still very much on the SMB side, even though now it's more now it's creeping a little bit more over to the enterprise side, right? But we were just
Yeah,
scared to put a high volume. Well, we knew it was going to be high volume up front, right? Because most companies that want a new build out, they're
yeah,
startups. So they start up with very little traffic, right? We knew this one was going to be big. So
yeah.
we made the decision to go with Shopify after, we went over all the requirements because we were like, look, you're going to be on Shopify. There are limitations. But, we launched the site and it did like a huge volume amount on the first day. Dude, the site never hicked up. It never threw a server error. There was like no latency on page load.
So
You know, that
yeah, so
that was big for this customer, right? Not to have their site crash, on launch day.
and that's one thing, that peace of mind, like you said, because you can definitely blame it on Shopify if something goes wrong, right? Because
Oh
they
yeah,
take
yeah,
their responsibility, but
yeah,
and it won't go so far on you, except that especially if they came to you and said, "Put me on Shopify," right? It's if you recommend Shopify and it
yeah,
breaks, you're in
yeah.
trouble.
Oh, then it's
But
really on you. Yeah.
but with WooCommerce, yeah, I mean, you do have the issue with having to
The,
own
you know, the,
that on
the
your side.
scalability, you really need to hire a pro that's going to tell you, hey, this is what you're going to need to power this website so it doesn't go down,
Yeah.
kind of thing, right?
My guy's name is Mihai. He's awesome.
Oh, gotcha.
But yeah, I mean, that I do get. We had a gun safe company that we were working with, and they were on WP Engine having a lot of different issues, and we did, we looked at WordPress VIP at one point, but then even looked at that where WooCommerce with WordPress VIP, it wasn't built to scale that. But now WooCommerce does have the enterprise, like they do have an enterprise solution now for WooCommerce that I think could help. And that's what I probably do is let the client know that we're going to team up with WooCommerce on this one. There is a cost associated with that because
Right. Yeah.
WooCommerce
Yeah.
partners with
Yeah.
you
No,
on it. So
they've really gotten their side together on that end, right? Especially now with the
yeah,
high performance order storage, which is
yes,
now it's been enabled by default for some sub versions now. I don't know which version or sub
yeah,
version it started at, but we've had a lot of customers that were on older versions, so that whole
I think it's
architecture
2 years.
hey,
Yeah, two
was it
years
2 years
now.
ago? I think it was in beta 2 years ago, right? Because
Yeah,
now
I think
now
last year it
it's cool. Yeah, now
went
now you can
fully.
release it. They put the data in a whole different table. Now you can release it, and they even have a feature that allows you to release it on safe mode. So
Yeah,
that if for some reason it totally goes wrong and you have to go back, it's apparently if you don't enable safe mode and you have to go back, it is a nightmare to move those orders, all that data from one table to another. So that safe mode like
yeah,
really allows you to flip it back if you have to, and then after a period of like a month or a week, whatever the case is, you can always disable that safe mode.
yeah. So, and I think what you brought up a point, like with the customer, you have like it's usually like they probably migrated from somewhere, right? Like they came from another platform, or was it like they automatically started with that many sales? Because sometimes there's a gradual progression
Yeah,
that a
right.
WooCommerce can
Yeah,
grow with.
yeah,
But if you're moving from Shopify Enterprise to WooCommerce Enterprise, that I can see where you would be like, because you're going to own that problem. If
yes,
it
yeah.
doesn't work,
You're gonna
because
own it. You're gonna literally
it
own
will
it.
have to.
You're gonna own it end to end, pretty much. You know?
Yeah, yeah, and so is the client though, because it's their site from this
Yeah,
point. It's not
yeah,
Shopify. So I think in that case, I haven't been in that situation yet where I had an enterprise client that that needed to have the enterprise let's say, team of WooCommerce, but I would say that would be the only way I'd go because I
Yeah.
would need to
I
know that I need that they do have a team in place for that, and I wouldn't try to do that on my own because we handled like up to about $1 million in sales per month on AWS. It worked fine, but it kind of grew into that versus like just saying, hey, we're going to throw it first round this much up to it, like that does get scary and that's very stressful. And that's where, things do cost because the problem that I had with this particular client is they didn't really have a budget to manage any enterprise version site. Even though they made the money, they didn't want to spend the money to
I'd say,
manage it
yeah,
properly, and it
yeah,
was
yeah.
putting a lot of stress and risk on
That's
my
another.
team because, yeah, so because the build itself, you also inherit sometimes builds, where it's like the website, if they want the current WooCommerce site to run effectively, sometimes it has to be rebuilt. And I'll give you an example. Using Elementor shouldn't be done on a enterprise site. It really should be done the bare bones minimum,
I agree. Yeah,
code that's
yeah,
needed. And
yeah.
a lot of
Even
times it
even
doesn't
headless.
happen
Oh,
that
let's not
way.
even go into headless.
Oh yeah. Well, yeah. Let's talk about headless
I
actually,
mean,
because
I don't like it's funny. I kind of saw headless as the future, Judd, but then the more I started to got into it and watch case studies and spoke to other agencies, headless is a nightmare to manage.
well,
Because
give me an example because I was thinking about trying out React
yeah,
with headless WordPress
just
and
headless on Shopify or headless on Woo. You're managing the entire presentation layer. So any changes are painful to do. It's not just a matter of like
yeah.
calling a website or making a draft page on the editor. And again, I never really dove into an actual project with it, but from what I've seen, I
I
we just
think
kind of decided to stay away from it.
I think where it would work is let's say you're an agency and you don't really change your website or you're some sort of company that does marketing inbound lead generation, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Inbound, something, and you don't really change your content that much. You have it optimized, you don't want to change it, but you want it super fast and really good for SEO. I think that's where it might
no
come in, just
doubt.
a
That's
standard
and
brand
that
site.
and
But
that's
but I
that's
think
the
you're
selling
right.
point. That's the selling point. But then look at the baggage that you
Yeah.
carry with it. You want an update done. It's
Yeah.
not go on the back end and click update, dude.
I had trying to look. It was Sanity or CMS or Let me. I had a quote where they wanted to go headless, and it they didn't want to use WordPress though, or they wanted to go with some other sort of platform. And I was trying to figure out what they were trying to do, and I felt like first off, I would still stick with WordPress. Like, let's go back to that. So headless WordPress, right? Like, in my understanding, you still do other headless stuff with other CMS platforms, and I typically wouldn't go outside of WordPress for that. Is that something? Oh yes, it was a priest named Dominic. They said we were considered going with a headless CMS like Sanity. Have you ever heard of Sanity?
No, no. I mean,
I never
I go through a lot of insanity in web design, but I never heard of sanity. And I guess
Yeah, there's a
that's how they came up with the name.
sanity.io.
That's probably how they came up with the name Sanity CMS. No, but let's get back on topic here, man, because we kind of went down the headless.
Sorry.
I guess what I was looking for if a customer came to me and was asking, hey, which platform should I go with? Here's what we want to build. If they were building a B2B website, or if they wanted to do both B2B and B2C on the same URL, WooCommerce still has superior power
Oh
over
yeah.
Shopify in this.
Yeah, we've done
Right.
about 70 wholesale sites, and I would say that yeah, like it's all there. I've even tried to because we're trying to do a path for some of these users to go Shopify. And there are a couple extensions that have wholesale, but they're very limited. And it just I
Yeah.
felt like in order to get them where they needed to be, they'd have to go to Shopify Plus, which is 2,500 bucks.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
like, the budget's
And
dead, you
that's still
know?
fairly new, right? Right now I think B2B only is available on the plus version, and
Yep.
they still need some more time with it. Like,
Yeah, it doesn't have all the features it needs, so it just is not ready yet.
and
But
wholesalers are
I will say,
very you'll it's at least in my opinion, it's rare that you build the same wholesale site twice. There's always some tweak that they want different. Like, I guess for the most part, a lot of the core features are there, right? Wholesale registration, approve or decline
yeah.
the application form.
So B2B King, that look up that plugin. I use that for tons of
It's
sites. It's
on a
great.
lot of it, it's right there, right? And again, then you can go in there and just kind of
Yeah, I
plug it.
bought a lifetime version of it too, unlimited, so I could use it on any site I want and for life. It's I mean so that's another thing too, with Shopify, you don't have is lifetime access to tools. Like there's a lot of WordPress developers, companies that sell software for their website that offer lifetime licenses. So if you really know that, hey, I'm going to stick with this, I've been using it for the last year, I'm going to go buy the lifetime license. Well, then boom, you just cut off one of your costs after after the first year, basically. So it's usually about three times it's usually 3 years is what a lifetime license costs. So I think that's a benefit too.
I gotcha. So yeah, kind of just moving along, customization, right? I mean, this one's kind of like a no-brainer.
I
Which
wouldn't do it. Shopify's a pain in the nuts.
it's
Sorry,
just,
Lisa.
and again, like, it's not really a Shopify thing either. It's not a Shopify. It's not that. It's just it's a SaaS platform, right? So
Yeah,
with SaaS, you have the advantage that you don't have to manage any code, you don't have to manage infrastructure, but your limitations are always customization. It's a question of how much are they willing to open up the platform so you can customize it, right?
yeah,
iPhone is a perfect example. In fact, most of the Apple ecosystem, Apple just in the last decade, they've really opened up their ecosystem, right? For years, Microsoft
yeah.
was the king of that, right? Where their platform was pretty open, and blue screen of death. How many times did we see that, right?
Microsoft sucks.
And then what happens with Mac or Apple? They start to open up all, this ecosystem.
Yeah,
And for a while there, man, that their
yeah,
platforms got a little bit shaky, right? Because they were doing, they were just being more open, right? Where people could hook in and do different things, and that just
yeah.
brings in trouble, right?
I will give Microsoft props though on like you could build in .NET very efficient and fast enterprise software. I will say that.
I
I'll
got
give
you.
that to
I mean, hey,
them.
that was their big strength. Look, Microsoft has always done well with the enterprise. And
Yeah.
till this day, that's where they rule. Is in
That's
it.
when I started well, I originally started in like HTML tables. Remember that back in 2000?
I don't
Um,
know, no.
that was it.
Oh,
Yeah,
you mean
so
like
literally,
building
yeah, building a site in Photoshop and cutting it up, the images and tables.
into
Like
tables?
that's
Oh my
how I
gosh,
started.
oh my gosh, yes, I do remember that. Yeah, yeah. And then
Yeah,
like
and then
that's like
.NET came
CSS.
out.
CSS changed all that, right?
Yeah, yeah, and well, yeah. So then that's where I got into CSS with .NET. So I started working on .NET sites, and I love that. That was probably 2005 around there, and 2007 is like where I got into WordPress. So that I was like, this is easy, and
Yeah,
I went from .NET to PHP. It was a little bit easier, and um, yeah, like I remember when I worked when we worked together way back then, the George Foreman Grill site,
yeah, yeah.
that was ASP.NET storefront. Holy cow, is that still around?
No, I think Applied Innovations bought it.
Really? They
Yeah,
did, huh?
yeah. It was done by a company. I want to say Kentucky.
Vortex. Vortex bought it.
Oh, Vortex
They
bought it.
still
Okay,
own it.
okay.
Yeah,
It was
I
by
remember when
Lagarde.
they bought it.
Oh
They
no,
bought
wait a
it when
minute. Wait a minute. I'm confused. I'm so sorry. There was Storefront by Lagarde, and then there was also ASP.NET Storefront, which was developed in .NET, which is, oh, let me tell you on that one. that was like the .NET early days.
It
Um,
was.
but anyway,
It worked.
let's move it along. What do you think is from a TCO or total cost of ownership standpoint? I'm sorry, total cost of ownership standpoint. Which one do you think is more cost effective? WooCommerce or Shopify?
WooCommerce.
You think WooCommerce? Tell me why. That's one I
Well,
can't really do in my mind.
over time, like WooCommerce is going to have a bigger cost up front. If you're, hire a developer and they build out your site. But nowadays, people are hiring developers for Shopify and they don't know. And I think one thing like Shopify, what it does do well is literally advertise. WooCommerce doesn't really advertise. So a lot of
Yeah.
people knew WooCommerce as the go-to. Now new people coming in and building sites and everything, they see Shopify first. Everyone, that's like on the tip of everyone's tongue is Shopify before WooCommerce. But like I said, like if you know how to just navigate through a few things, WooCommerce, and I'm saying if you wanted to build it yourself, so like a Shopify user, small startup guy wants to sell a product, he wants to go on Shopify real quick, spin up a website. I believe you can do the same with WooCommerce as you could with Shopify by yourself without a developer nowadays. And it's going to be cost effective because you have like Pressable, you have WordPress.com, you have, just hosting is very inexpensive. And I think it's just as easy to throw up a site by yourself on WooCommerce as Shopify. I would even dare to say easier. It's just I think Shopify just makes it a little bit more intuitive on their setup process, which WooCommerce is getting better at. So I think that's the only I definitely would say WooCommerce would be more cost effective in my opinion than Shopify. I think you might spend a couple extra days, on getting your site up, but at the end of it, you still have so much. It's just such a greater flexibility, particularly with the free plugin extensions that are out there
Yeah,
on
yeah.
WordPress.org.
I will
Everything
say this.
costs money with Shopify.
I will say
Every
this.
little extension.
Yeah.
You
I
need something, you pay every time.
yeah. I mean, not
Let me have your
necessarily.
take though.
I mean, not necessarily true. I mean, there's a lot of free apps out there, or there's a lot of apps that you can use for free.
Well,
It's
how many? Like, what's the difference in between Shopify and WordPress?
it's like
How many?
they're both large ecosystems. It's hard to determine, but I'm not saying you can't. There are some free apps out there. In fact, most apps out there are free to use initially. Like you'll get like a 7-day trial, or they have a free
I mean,
version.
like that's not free.
No, but I'm saying there's a trial. There's
Okay.
you know
Well, here, so
I mean, here's the reality too on the plugin side. I think you and I both know this very well. We're gonna get into the debate here. I know it, which is great. But you know, when you get a plugin, do you go with like a free plugin, or would you rather pay for an actual pro plugin?
well, so I'm talking about like the user that doesn't have the budget to pay
Yeah, Shopify has a lot of that.
developer.
A lot of their plans are free, but they're very limited. Like for example, a pop-up plan. You might get like 10,000 views per month for free. Once you go past that, then you got to upgrade.
So let me get this straight. So
And by the way, that's just me
Shopify.
like coming up with random numbers. Don't quote me on that. I'm just kind
Well,
of
so
pulling them out of.
Shopify has a free account. Someone can don't have to pay the monthly.
It's
They
not.
only have to pay the
Yeah, it's
credit
not.
card charge.
It's not so much Shopify itself. It's the vendors that sell in the marketplace. A lot of them can give the plugin away for zero, but it's just very limited in terms of like it's basically like a light version. And those limitations are usually like resource-based limitations, right?
Gotcha. All right. Well,
And it's really
I'm
marketing.
still
Look,
not
it's marketing,
sold.
marketing and sales 101 is really what it is. And let me just say this too, because I'll tie this into the previous point. What you see is what you get with Shopify pretty much. You know what I mean? You get a plugin for WooCommerce that's well written that you can hook into. Sky's the limit. You can take that plugin that's going to get you
Yeah.
80% of the functionality and code the rest. On Shopify, does not
Yeah.
exist,
Well,
my friend. I'm
perfect point.
sorry.
Yeah, you have the actual source code
Yeah.
for everything.
Well, if you're gonna
on
fork it, I
WordPress.
mean, that's now you're getting into like forking, you know? You have the source
Yeah.
code, but you gotta be careful how you hook into it because you don't want to have to maintain the plugin. You want to rely on the developer that maintains the plugin, right? For security
No,
and
but like, if you want to add a feature to it, I've done this many times where I added a
yeah.
feature to a plugin and and told the developer, hey, can you put this into your free version or whatever? If there is a pro version, obviously it's up to them whether they want to include the feature. But like you said, if you do have like you still have control. Like that's the main
No
thing. You
doubt.
have control over what you
Full control.
want to do.
Without a doubt, yeah. Whether you want to fork it or
Yeah.
not, because every time we fork a plugin, we tell the customer up front, like, hey, the only way to do this customization is to actually overwrite the base code. When we do that, you won't be able to do updates. So every time there's an
Well,
update,
you could create another plugin that's an extension to that one so that you're not updating the parent plugin
if
and
but yeah, but the APIs have to be the endpoints have to be in place. Some plugins
oh,
don't
stuff
have
like
those
that.
endpoints in place. So yeah, that's what I'm saying. We have to fork it because sometimes we got to tell the customer like, hey, we might be able to hook into the plugin and not make any customizations to the base code.
Yeah.
We'll get back to you on that. Because if not, this is the problem you're gonna run into. You're gonna update that plugin. If those files that we customize get updated, your functionality is gone. It could potentially take your site down. But anyway, that's more like the
I,
pros and cons of customizing software, right?
yeah, and typically when we customize or when we create a plugin, or let's say we really just customize an existing plugin and make it 10 times better, typically at that point we rewrite it a bit and then we would maintain it as a plugin we own and sell.
Oh, I see.
So
So
so if you're teaming up with a developer that's building a plugin, it's always something to ask them is, do you guys will you guys support this plugin, ongoing? And if you do, because that's all something we always offer. Because sometimes I get a plugin job and I tell them I will take 50% of the time cost to build the plugin because I'm going to sell it on my plugin site.
I got you. Yeah, yeah,
You get a
yeah,
lifetime license
yeah.
basically, but
Oh, free.
you're
Yeah.
only going to
Okay. Yeah.
profit half of
You're talking. Yeah. We're not talking like your average agency or average customer stuff though. But yeah, I get it. That's smart.
yeah. But yeah,
Let's.
but to the point, to going back to, I still think that I like owning my stuff. I don't like being locked in from a vendor standpoint anywhere. I think being locked in is,
I think everybody does, Judd. But you also have to factor in total cost of
yeah.
ownership,
Well,
which
let's talk
which
about
is a big one.
support, because that's the other part. Like the shop, so WooCommerce is your support is usually who you teamed up with to build your site, right?
Yeah.
You offer limited support, for plugins and stuff, but what's the Shopify support like? Because I think that's where other people
Yeah.
like that would be a place where they can shine.
So this is kind of like, and it is, right? Because you're talking about a platform that's centralized from a management standpoint, right? Everything goes through them. It's like Apple. You can get support from Apple. It's funny. This is
Yeah,
kind of like the debate when I was involved in hosting. It was Linux versus Microsoft, right? Where like you could go with like Red Hat servers, right? And you have to pay no licensing fees, but you're
it's like
gonna
AWS
you're
hosting.
well, but that's going down the low. That's today. I'm talking like 15, 20 years ago. But the
Yeah,
problem with that was there was nobody to call if you had a problem. At least with Microsoft, if you got into an issue with Microsoft servers, you could call Microsoft support.
yeah,
And
yeah,
that's kind of the same thing. It's the same thing with Shopify too. And Shopify has like two tiers of support, and
yeah,
they've grown massively over the years. So now like their basic tier, which is anything other than Shopify Plus, you only get chat support, which is brutal. We all know how brutal chat support is, right? Because it's the communication just like
yeah,
degrades and it's just not fast at all. But then they also have their enterprise support. And like let me tell you, man, those guys are on it. And I
yeah.
will say the same thing for Woo too. I'm sorry, Judd, but Woo, we've had an issue with a customer that was enterprise, and
Oh
one
yeah, the enterprise version. Yeah, that's there.
I guess yeah, I
That's
guess yeah,
totally different.
it's like anything else in life, man. You get what you pay for.
Yeah, no, I think the enterprise versions. Yeah, it's the same with like WooCommerce. They do have chat. They do. You can talk about plugins, but when it comes to your site, because they didn't build your site, they would support either a
Right.
plugin and a library. Like you have to go and find support wherever you got the plugin or your theme, and so it's a little bit
Yeah.
different. I will say though that even though
And
you
look,
have to
that's
go to
kind of the same deal with Shopify too, though. You know, they'll tell you like, hey, look, this plugin is causing the problem. You're gonna want to go talk
oh
to the vendor.
really?
Yeah,
That
oh yeah,
sucks.
yeah. Well, again, look, but it, Woo does the same thing.
Yeah, that's true.
Like they do it,
That's why
you know,
that's why they need partners. I
that's
mean,
why they
that's
need
why
partners. Yeah,
they
like
agencies.
or hey, go talk to the vendor. We just uncovered an issue on like one of these upsell plugins where the view cart page was like taking 10 seconds to render, and we narrowed it down to the one plugin. So now we're talking to the vendor about it, like, guys, what's up with your plugin? It's like, because we told the customer, like, listen, you don't want to pay us to debug this. You already pay a license. Let's go talk to them first, kind of thing.
Oh, absolutely. I always do that. Like I tell them like we need to go to the source. And if the source doesn't fix it, then we would actually go through the process of debugging it for the client. But that's like the last resort.
Yeah,
And I will say that's how you learn really quick what plugins are good and which are not, which ones are not, is the
yeah,
ones that
yeah.
offer good support. And I could name a few, but I'm not.
All
But
right, we'll move it along. Let's jump over to SEO. So, when it comes to both platforms, which one do you think is better on the SEO side?
I don't think I have enough knowledge on Shopify to say that
Yeah.
that's a tough one.
It's
I do
it's
know
painful.
WordPress.
I'm gonna tell you right now, it's painful to deal with SEO stuff on
Okay.
Shopify. It's nothing like WordPress, man. You know?
That's like owning your stuff, like
Yeah,
that's why there's some really good tools like Rank Math, Yoast, All-in-One
yeah,
SEO.
yeah, yeah.
They're just great tools,
You get
but
you get access to the robots TXT, which is big. You know.
yeah.
Um,
Yeah. Well, and also with Shopify, I don't know how it is on speed, but I think with the lower accounts, you're not getting super fast websites.
you'd be
It's,
surprised. No, it's it
I
performs
don't
really
think it's
well,
going to
man.
be in the green for everything though. Like, let's say you want to tweak it. Like, I could tweak a server and do a lot of things that are not necessarily related to the design or build of the website to make it faster. So I guess you could complain to Shopify, but I think the chances are of them, if you're on a small plan, trying to, do the best they can and trick out your website from a hosting standpoint. I don't think they're going to do it. That's my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, I will say that the theme, if you use themes with Shopify, it's kind of like on the
Yeah.
on the WordPress or Woo ecosystem. Theme developers are now more aware that speed is vital. They almost use it as a selling point on every template that you buy out there, right? 'Cause
Yeah.
it's not just about your images or how many elements you got, it's how well your CSS and your JS is written, you know.
Yeah.
And then you can
Notification
also do a few
caching.
tricks. On
Yeah.
WooCommerce, you can do more tricks, right? You can minify CSS and JS, and that helps out. On Shopify. You can't really do any of that stuff.
Yeah.
I would say at the end of the day, you could probably squeeze more out of WordPress than from Shopify, without
Well,
a
yeah, absolutely. Like if you're on it, like we have clients on an AWS server, we can, double their resources for very inexpensive compared to a
yeah,
typical
that
host.
elastic approach.
And
Although
that would
here's
that would make things
hold on,
faster just doing
let me
that.
stop you right there though. If you ask Shopify how much traffic can a website take, their answer is unlimited. It doesn't matter how much you throw at it, it'll take it.
Well, they probably have auto scaling or
I'm
something. What
sure.
do they
I don't know
what do
how it
they
works. They've never like disclosed how it works, but
yeah, like what do they host
I've
on?
been a witness of it. I'm telling you, I've been a witness of it. From that big celebrity launch we had a few years ago. I was shocked. The site just nothing, never blinked. I was
They're
blown.
on Google Cloud and AWS.
Is that what powers?
At least that's what it says. That's what AI is telling me.
I got
I
you.
mean,
Yeah, I
it
don't know. I
says
don't
it
know how
doesn't
proprietary.
publicly disclose.
I never went down that rabbit hole with them. Um, so from an
Yeah,
SEO standpoint, I think we both definitely agree on that one, right? That WordPress is definitely far superior there.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Hands down.
What about
Yeah.
what about the following? What about from like a client handoff standpoint? Once you're ready to give your
Um,
customer the keys to the kingdom, what do you think is
I
easy
think
to work
both
with?
are probably I think both are probably pretty standard.
I would say
If you use
Shopify. I like to do like the iOS Android comparison, right? It's like you can do more with Android, but it's a little bit more complex. Apple, you can do not as much, but what you can do is easy to do, right? Shopify is just adding a product in Shopify is
simple.
It's just,
Yeah.
it's really, really simple, man. Now here's where it gets tricky. Once you start working with all these third-party apps, a lot of them don't
Oh
hook
yeah.
directly into the interface. So it does get a little, although they introduced like meta fields and things like that and make it much easier. Um,
Yeah.
but out of the box, I would say Shopify is just way more intuitive. Again, it does a lot less, right? And Shopify, I tell people, hey, Shopify is straight up ecom, right? WordPress is a CMS. You just happen to
Yeah.
have a plugin that gives you ecom capability on top of that CMS, right? Because I tell people too all the time, like, hey, if you're looking to build a site that's content heavy, go over to WordPress. Forget about
I mean,
Shopify.
you literally could change the WordPress backend to look more like Shopify. I mean,
You
there's
could,
tools
you
that
could, yeah, hey, yeah. I mean, that's you nailed it. As far as how much that's going to cost, but yeah, you nailed it. No, one time
yeah.
we built a marketplace, which we're building another marketplace again now too. And
God bless your soul.
I'm glad I'm not alone here. You feel my pain too on that.
Hey, look at Market King. That's the same people that do the wholesale suite. They have a
Oh,
marketplace
I'll check it out.
platform.
We're already past that stage, but I'll check it out.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
Anyway, you have to revamp all the UI for end users to be able to come in and upload their products and make it easy for them.
That's what your client said?
No, no, that's what we say. It,
Oh, okay.
so we're
Oh, because oh, I see. Because they're not in, they're in WooCommerce backend.
right.
Yeah.
So you have a WooCommerce marketplace. That means I register, I can sell products. How do I upload my products as a vendor?
Yeah. So you know what I would probably do? I would probably use some sort of interface. Like you know how I use Airtable, right? And I could build interfaces for my business and do a lot of cool stuff with it. I believe there's like some interfaces that you could use that they would be just for those customers. So that's where I would look into maybe a third party interface that can tap into the API, and it does
Yeah, right.
exactly
Yeah,
what you
yeah.
need it to
You
do.
still got to map it, Judd.
Yeah, you gotta map it, but it's still better than trying to
You
customize.
understand what I'm trying to say, though, right?
Yeah, it sucks.
It's just Shopify is way more intuitive when it
You
comes to
take those big projects, man. God bless you. I don't know how you still have hair because I lost all mine.
yeah. Well, no, there's some great ones coming in now.
Yeah,
Let's dive into a big one. You ready for this one? Um,
yeah.
let's talk about security. Which platform do you think is more secure?
I'm reading your question. I would say so. That's up to well, out of the box, Shopify. Well, so here's the thing. With a closed source platform, you don't know how secure they are because they don't tell you how many times they've been having issues, right?
I guess they're based. They operate out of Canada, right? No, no, no. Wait a minute. Are they Canadian based?
They're worldwide probably now,
No,
but
right. But what I'm trying to say is like, for example, in the state of California, if you operate in the state of California, right, if your business is registered there and your site gets hacked, right, if information gets stolen, by law, you have to notify your users, your customer base, by law.
yes, and I think because
Um,
they're a they're public, right?
Shopify is public, yes.
Yeah, they have like they definitely have
They
to.
definitely have to.
Um,
Okay.
so yeah, so that's the thing. I think with WooCommerce, you have to partner up with a hosting company or developer team, agency, whatever that understands security. That's a must, especially if you're enterprise. Shopify, I think, that's one of their benefits, particularly private enterprise, is that they take ownership of that. But like the one thing I can say with WooCommerce is you actually know everything. Like everything that's going on. You can see your server, well, depending on where you host, but
Yeah.
you can have more control over your security. So if you
I
do have to
guess
be
you'd be
compliant,
surprised. You'd be surprised, man. When I worked in hosting, we saw some crazy hacks on servers, dude. Like I will never forget this. I'm talking like 20 years ago, right? Where we'd see like peak usage on our servers on the network. Like basically
yeah,
chewing up the whole entire pipe, right? Like a 10 megabit or 10 megabyte LAN pipe, right?
yeah,
And you go into the server and you would see that it was hardly being utilized. It turns
right.
out some of these hackers would break in and they would bypass the UI. So what the
Oh,
server was
crazy.
reporting visually in terms of usage wasn't actually the case. You know, it might have been using 1% CPU or 3% CPU. It was actually at 100%. I mean, that's how sophisticated some of these hackers are. Now, I don't live in the server world anymore at that level, so I don't know what stuff they encounter today, but that I had seen multiple times, and then before you know it, you start to tear the server apart and you start finding all kinds of movies and wares and you name it.
Yeah,
In fact,
you definitely.
in a couple cases, we had these servers we were trying to salvage. We talked to Microsoft. They're like, look, you got to wipe the hard drive. You got to start from scratch. We can't save this. Yeah,
Welcome to
Microsoft saying that, right?
Microsoft.
Yeah, yeah. Like, sorry, man. Like, I
That's
hope you
why
don't.
I've been using Mac for 10 years. I've gone back and forth between Macs from like Mac 1 and literally way back when.
Yeah,
And I every time I go back to Mac, I'm happy I did. And I haven't gone back
yeah.
for 10
I
years
I gotta
because
tell
I
you, I
haven't been
feel like
hacked. I've never been hacked on Mac.
I never
Not
have
once.
either. No, without a doubt. Way, way, way better. But I have to tell you, man, I've been disappointed these last few years, man. Dude, for my Macs were always so solid for years.
Yeah.
Now I just
I
feel like they just have to polish up the OS still. Like there's like
Yeah,
look
but
at the
I will say that they don't break, they don't get hacked. They last longer than any Windows machine
they
I had.
they, they
I
do,
had
yeah.
a I usually buy the most expensive Mac.
Yeah.
I'll keep it for 10
You're,
years.
you're smart. You know why? I do the same thing. You spent like 4 or 5 grand on a Mac. It's gonna last you a decade, dude.
Yeah, I have like I have four screens on a ProBook, and
Yeah.
I
And
also have
and
a Studio next to me, and the ProBook's like 5 times faster
and,
than the Studio.
and, com
But
and computer years, that's unheard of, a decade. But
yeah,
point being is I just feel like I've been restarting my desktop on my laptop on my phone a lot more lately.
oh,
I mean,
that sucks.
I probably go like months or maybe a whole year without restarting my.
You do have to keep a Mac up to date. I know that because I feel like they do things to your stuff if you don't keep it up to date. They got sued on the phone, and the European Union or something sued them
Uh-huh.
because they were literally breaking the phone so people would update. I forgot
Yeah,
there's something
that's
around
right.
that.
No,
I
no.
looked it
I'll
up.
tell you. I'll tell you what this is. They were throttling the CPU on the phones.
It's bullshit. Yeah.
But it wasn't. I don't think it was done in a malicious intent. It was
Oh
just.
yeah, it was.
You really
I
think
don't
so?
trust them. Ah,
Really?
yeah, they're awful. They're all schemy.
Yes. I don't
They,
know.
you know what?
I'm
They
so
want
naive.
us. They don't want to give us something that will work forever. They want us to buy shit every year.
I
So they're
think
not going
I
to
Judd,
make it
I
that way.
think the whole thing was like, and this only affected like a certain generation of iPhones, right? Where like iOS versions were being released, right? And these old
Mhm.
phones couldn't keep up with the new iOS, so they would just churn or burn through battery in no time. So they had to lower the clock usage on the CPUs to make the battery life last
Yeah,
longer.
but they knew they were going to
But
do that though.
what bit him in the ass though is that they didn't tell their users. They didn't give them the option.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm saying. They knew that
And,
what they
and that's
were
what
doing.
I'm saying. Like, I don't think it was done in a
Some guy
malicious
was like, "Oh, does
way.
that mean we're going to have to buy a new phone? Go ahead and do it." You know what I
Well,
mean?
do you hear
Yeah.
what what Tesla does when I love Tesla. I'm on my second Tesla. I love that darn company
Right.
from
My son wants a Tesla. He just got his first job,
oh
so
nice
he's like, "Dad, I want to go get a car." And I'm like, "All right, I'll go
nice.
with you."
Um
Pretty easy, I guess, buying a Tesla too.
you
It's
can
like,
pick one up used for nothing. They depreciate so fast, like any tech, right? The
yeah,
problem is good luck getting it fixed. It's like owning an Apple device 10 years ago. If it broke, you have to take it to Apple, right?
I
Um,
gotta take it to Tesla.
same thing. I'm sorry,
Yeah,
what?
they have to take it to Tesla if it
You gotta
breaks
take it
because
to
they don't.
Tesla, and they're not, dude. These cars are not cheap to fix, man. I think point I was trying to make was, with Tesla, if Tesla finds out that you've modified your car, like certain aspects
Yeah,
of your car, they will
they break the
market.
warranty, right?
No, dude, they'll
Or
shut
you?
it. They'll shut it down.
No shit.
Yes,
See,
they will.
that's wrong.
But listen to me though. Listen to me. You're dealing with like high voltage systems, right? You start
Oh, that's true.
think
You
of
could do
Judge,
something. It
think
could be
about that. You
dangerous.
start you start messing with that. And that car, and bro, when these cars catch on fire, it's
But
insane.
what about all the Tesla cars that caught fire because the salt
The salt,
water
right? It short circuits the batteries.
during
Yeah, yeah.
hurricanes,
Hey, that's
blowing up houses
listen.
and stuff?
I sort of tell people when they hear these things, I'm like, look, man, I'm like, no technology is perfect. You're gonna have
What,
questions.
but wouldn't that kind of scare you though? You're driving over an old bridge over the
Oh,
intercoastal.
oh, yeah,
Because you go in, you're done.
dude.
You know?
Sometimes I run these scenarios in my head, like if this car catches on fire, how long is it gonna take me to get out of it?
Yeah, you need like a side ejection seat or something,
Yeah,
you know
yeah,
what I
there
mean?
you go. But you know, Judd, when the gasoline engine came out, a lot of people thought it was a bad idea, and here's why. They said nobody's going to drive around with high flammable gas tank. Plus, you're going to need to have gas stations to fill up. And what do
Yeah,
we
only
have
a
today?
small percentage burn their driver. You
And
know
what do
what I
we have
mean? Like,
today? But what do we have today, though, Judd? We have gas stations on virtually every corner, right?
yeah.
And everybody drives around with this high flammable stuff
I'm
in the
all
tank.
gas, man. I can't do the electric thing. I just don't think I'll ever. I like what. So I always get the hand-me-down car, right? My wife gets a new car, I get the old car. My kids get cars, I just keep my car. That's just the way it is. I would say most dads probably same boat. I want to buy an old classic car, one with no computer,
Yeah.
that's like 30,000, completely redone engine, like farm truck that's fast or something like that. That's where I see me. I don't see myself
You
going
know,
into
you know what I
technology.
love? You know what I love about my Tesla? Um, the full self-driving. Like it's Judd, it has gotten so good. And I've had it for
Yeah.
like I've had full self-driving for 3 years.
So
It has
like,
well, hear me out,
not
hear me
not to
out.
say
No, no, hear
not
me out.
like,
Judd, listen. It has gotten so good, right? That when you're on the highway and you're on the fast lane, right? And somebody's behind you trying to pass you, the car will pull over, let the person pass you, and then it'll get back on that high speed lane again. That's
that's so it's courteous.
it's courteous. Not only that, when you pass a semi truck on the highway,
Yeah.
it will hug the opposite side of the lane to keep you the
So how
farthest away from that truck.
So how this is something I've never seen. You figured you might see like on a video somewhere, but how many times do you think a person's totally wasted, drunk, and just puts on auto drive to get back home?
Well,
Like,
Jelly, here's the thing though. And here's one thing Tesla has made me a safer driver. And here's why. It, about roughly about a year ago, it used to be the way that the car could know if you were at the driver's seat and in control was
yeah,
obviously by having your seatbelt on, but force feedback on the steering wheel, right? Now they have a camera, right? That
yeah.
camera looks at your eyes. If you're holding a phone, it'll tell you hand device detected. If you don't put that phone down, it'll disable full self-driving. If you're not looking at the road, let me tell you something, man. I've gotten so efficient in changing radio stations in my car.
Hey, I want to know how drunk drivers work, like when it because how's
You can't be drunk and drive that car.
really
You can't.
okay.
No, because bro, you gotta have your eyes open and pay attention to the road.
Well, I'm
Otherwise,
just saying, like if you're like I'm just hypothetically, let's say you had about 6 drinks and you can still make it home
oh, I got
badly.
you. Yeah, yeah.
Like does it say Carlos, you do not look well today?
No, it doesn't. No, actually, you know who does that though? Mercedes-Benz does that. They've been doing that for years.
Really?
If you're swerving too much, it'll light up the coffee cup icon.
Oh, okay. I don't
Yeah.
know if that actually helps this lighting the coffee cup.
Yeah, that's all. It's just the card telling you like, hey, you might want to take a break. You're driving too much.
Yeah, I saw in like I was in San Francisco not too long ago. Last year I was in San Francisco and I saw like all the cars. They have these cars driving people all over the place, like an
Yeah,
Uber, but
Waymo, Waymo.
and one of them ran somebody over. It just kept on going.
Yeah, right. I'm sure. Yeah,
It's
yeah,
like, oh, I gotta get this
yeah,
person to where he needs to go. He just ran.
yeah.
It's like this is what the world's going to, right?
I know.
But anyway, all right. Way off topic, but it was cool.
Right on top of
I have
yeah.
so many other questions about Tesla because my son wants
I
one.
think
But
I think we're all good. I think let's see here.
actually, sorry, if my son has any questions about the Tesla, about buying it,
I'll have him call
can he
me.
give you a call? All
Absolutely.
right, yeah,
I could talk. He'll probably
yeah, because
he'll,
I might have you help me for that,
he'll get
honestly,
tired of talking
because
to me.
we're gonna go up to the one in West Palm. Is that where you got yours?
Uh, bro, buying a Tesla is amazing. You never talk to anybody. It's all done through the app.
No shit. All right, we'll talk later about that.
It's
All
like
right.
when your car is delivered, you just show up with your phone, bro, and you pick up your car.
Wow.
And
Yeah.
Now they just announced the cars are going to drive themselves to your house.
What?
Yeah.
But can you allow the car to drive you somewhere, or you always have to drive?
So it's there's 5 levels of autonomy in driving, right? Like I think cruise control, for example, that's like level 2, right?
Yeah.
Auto lane steering, that's like level 3. Right now, I think level 3 is what's legal. Level 5 is full autonomy. That means like you don't even need a steering wheel, right? That's not legal. Level 4, level 5 are not legal yet. I,
Because
I
I
think,
literally seen a dude sleeping, driving. Like this is like 5 years ago, like
yeah.
maybe before it became laws against it.
All right.
He was like this.
Where did you
He
see
was
this? Did you
literally
see this on social media?
no. I was driving next to him with my sons. He was not paying attention. He was like literally just kind of like that.
You used to be able to easily fake the software because it would just rely on the weight that you put on the steering wheel and torque.
Ah,
Now
okay.
you can't, bro. If your eyes aren't open, the car will tell you like you're not paying attention to the road. And you know what it'll do? If it has to warn you 3 times in a ride, it'll punish you. It'll say disable full self driving for the rest of this ride.
Who the fuck wants a car like that?
Well, the car's telling you for your own safety, you got to pay
Yeah,
attention.
yeah. I got my wife telling me for my own safety I can't do shit. I don't want a car telling me. I don't know. I'm going backwards. I want like anything, before
That's
1983.
Judd, that I love that. That's got its beauty too. It really does.
Yeah,
But I love a Tesla as a daily driver. It's super convenient, bro. There's no
yeah,
maintenance. I don't even know how to operate a pump anymore.
yeah. I'm not allowed to have. My wife gets all the nice cars. I'm not allowed to have nice cars because I do too much, fishing and just shit. Yeah. How do you fit all your fishing poles in a Tesla?
Well, that's why my son's gonna start driving. Guess what he's getting? A pickup
If you
truck.
get a truck,
He's getting a pickup truck or a
there
Bronco.
you
I don't
go.
know. I don't know
They're
yet.
so practical for a man.
They
They
really
really
are,
are.
man.
Pickup
Dude, every
truck.
time I go to Home Depot, I don't know. I don't feel like a
It's
man
amazing
going
how
up.
many people like once you have a truck too, like how many people out of the woodwork like, hey man, can I borrow your truck? Hey
Oh,
man,
is that?
can you come over? I need a truck.
I've never asked for a truck. So that's like a
It's
little.
usually my family, but yeah.
Oh, okay.
Anyway, all right, let's go. One more question or two. What do we got? Fucking one. CRMs and ERPs. There you go. Do
Well,
that one.
what are your thoughts on that one? Um, third party integrations like CRMs, ERPs, and 3PLs or fulfillment platforms. Um,
I would say WooCommerce all the way. Their API is great. I think Shopify is a pain in the nuts, and you'll need Shopify
I
Plus.
got I have to tell you, over the last couple of years, Shopify has dramatically opened up their platform, dude. Like, and
Yeah,
it's been really nice what they've done. Like, you would think that we've been in the SaaS world for what, 2 decades now. SaaS has been around, and
yeah.
it was never gonna happen. Like, oh, it's just impossible. It'll never happen. And they just like kind of defy that, dude. Like, you can now write custom apps on Amazon I'm sorry, on Shopify. There
Yeah.
the
I think
extensibility.
it's just going to get better. I mean, I think even with AI, I think everything is going to get in the next 10 years. I mean, it's going to get
Yeah, yeah,
so
yeah.
I think there's going to be a very big shift in who's the big boy on the block when it comes to all sorts of software. We're going to see like whoever really is like, I'm going to stay ahead of this curve because they have the power to do that. It's just if they're lazy, like there's a lot of new ways and technology out there, I think. But I'm still going to say WooCommerce because Shopify still I think if you're going to tap into ERP, you need Shopify Plus.
No, no, no. You can install apps on any version of Shopify, custom apps.
Okay, well you
Um,
still need
but
some sort
but
of
here,
software.
yeah, oh, no doubt. Yeah. I mean, it's like think of it as writing a custom plugin. But I mean, look, here's the beauty of Woo, right? You have no layers to stop you from doing things. You do whatever the heck you want.
Yeah, I can do
But
whatever
with
I want.
Shopify, you
That's
got layers, everywhere. Like, hey, we can only take this so far. This is all
You do
you're
have
getting
layers
here.
with Woo, but there are a lot less layers, and you can start off completely free. You know, that's what I think. But so okay, the
So yeah, so
final question:
bottom line, Judd, which one's better? What do you tell clients when they ask you which one's better?
WooCommerce.
Do you? I don't. I just say depends. That's usually my go-to. I go, well, look, it depends on
Really?
your needs. Yeah, yeah.
All right. Well, I need to probably work a little more on Shopify to be able to give you definitely done more work than me on Shopify. So I'd
Yeah,
say
that's not what this was about. It was like,
For
trying to.
me, you know what it is too. Honestly, if I can manage a customer ongoing, which I love because I can do it with Woo. If I can do that with Shopify, that'd be great because management is like a key thing for a web development agency for ongoing business.
Yeah, no doubt. From an agency standpoint, I'd much rather see WooCommerce customers.
There you go.
Yeah, no
See
doubt.
that's why I
It's so
think.
funny because we worked on Magento for years, and we
Oh
had
God,
customers paying us so much money, and then we started to migrate them to like either Shopify or
and they
Woo,
pay you
and
shit.
and our
It works
revenue
so much
decreased
better.
dramatically. I'm like, no, I'm like, get back on Magento.
Yeah.
I want
It's
the gray hairs again.
Magento's. Yeah, Magento is like one of those platforms that decided we're not going to try to keep ahead of the curve. I
Well,
feel like they're just they kept.
Magento was ahead of the curve 15 years ago. They built
Oh yeah,
they built an amazing platform, but
Enterprise too. It was the best PHP enterprise platform.
it was, and it did multi, or it still does multi-site out of the box, which nobody else really does like them.
Yeah,
But I think it took so long for them to rewrite it because they needed to rewrite it. They couldn't just extend Magento 1. Magento 1 was
yeah,
monolithic, dude. It was big and bulky, and there was so much
yeah,
functionality. They ultimately had to rewrite the whole platform. It took them so long. I think by the time they pushed out version 2, a lot of people had
yeah,
already bailed, you know?
yeah. Well, we'll see. What are they doing now?
I have no
I don't
idea.
even.
Doesn't PayPal own them? Who owns them?
I don't even know. I don't even know what happened to
Let's look
them.
it up.
Magento.
Oh, I'm sorry, Adobe. Adobe owns them.
Well, that was a dumb buy.
No, I think that was probably smart, dude. You
I
know,
don't know,
for
man. Oh, maybe.
yeah, I don't
They were
know.
probably
It's
going
funny.
after enterprise.
I
I would
see
probably say
I
it's
see a lot of
B2B.
enterprise. I see a lot of enterprise customers using Adobe products. Like what is it? The experience. What does Adobe have for web?
Adobe, they had Xcode or whatever. It's so they bought Figma. Didn't have Adobe bought Figma. That was a smart
Don't they have
move.
some kind of like CMS though? Bro, they
They
bought
did.
Figma, but that fell apart. They had to pay Figma $1 billion to break the
No, Adobe did not purchase Figma. They announced they were going to acquire it for 20 billion, but the deal was
yeah,
terminated in
yeah, and then
2000.
they have to give 1 billion to get out of the agreement.
That's right. You told me about that.
Yeah.
Wow.
Talk about hitting the lottery, bro.
No shit. Yeah, Figma's awesome. That's what I use now
Yeah,
with my
it's
team.
funny. It's funny how that's
Don't you
changed.
hate it though? Like, I'm such an Adobe guy because that's what I started on. Like, literally Adobe Essentials or whatever it was
Yeah,
back in like
yeah.
98. And now my creative director builds everything in Figma, and I go to edit it, and I just want to kill myself. I'm like, because I don't know it, but it is there's like a learning curve. I think with Adobe Photoshop, for example, or even Xcode, is it Xcode? I just felt like that was easier. Figma's great. You just have to like learn. It's like a learning curve.
Yeah.
And I should have said kill
No,
myself. That's not.
you know what Figma like really number one, Figma would output your HTML and CSS code, right? Which for development that's huge. You don't have to guess anymore, right?
Yeah,
Also from a collaboration standpoint, you know, Adobe was just kind of late to that, right? They were still kind of running these server-side tools.
that's what WordPress should do is build something where like a theme could be created from like a Figma type product, and it would just be boom.
I'm sure it's already out there, dude. We just haven't. I'm pretty sure like they have one for Wix where you can take your Figma project and publish it to Wix. It'll build it for you. But I don't know. I just have,
Yeah,
you know how it is, Joe. It's hard to like mess around with everything
yeah,
that's out there, you know? You become being good at nothing. You know how
yeah.
about you know how
I,
about
I want to sell everything and get rid of all TVs, technologies, iPhones, live in the mountains. That's kind of where I want to go.
yeah, I'll probably end up there too, man. As much as I love
Hang
technology.
out.
All right, Jed, it's
All
been
right.
great, man.
All right,
I'll
man.
see you again soon.
All right. We'll talk soon, bud.
Take it
See
easy.
you.